everybody, I'm Tommy, and you are on the lifeboat. What's happening? Holy hell, will you look at this? We have power on. Actually, it's been a decent day for power, and I learned a lot more about it. So, in theory, we're not scheduled to lose power today. We ought to be in good shape. Things happen anyway. But, Roberta, good to see you. Carolina, Canada, how are you? Kathy Burkhart, I'm glad you're here. Chef Brian, you know, if you've never gone over to his channel, you should go check him out and hit subscribe. Boy, does he look like a Scoville. That cat could be a brother, couldn't he? Johnny and I went over and subbed there today, and we're watching some of his videos, and that cat could be my brother. Fisher Blue, good to see you. Lisa Palmer, how are you? Brock Bandy is here. Thank you to the mods and to all of the people that are keeping free speech alive. You guys really do make it happen. Kevin Hawthorne, Lakeland, Florida, good to have you here, brother. Janet, good to see you. This is going to be a good one. Ruby for Justice, how are you? Christy Sayers, I'm glad that you're here. Ann from Mass. If you missed last night's show, we had a really good one. Punisher, there you are. Good to have you here. All right, everybody, there's 260 of you in here. Do me a favor and smack the like button. It really bothers YouTube. I'm not lying. Yes, they do. The Geo Tracker repaint video is the best, and the white bread recipe. I was watching you make hamburger buns. Rowdy Mom, good to see you. Glad that you are here. Neptune Lioness in the house. All right, people. So you probably, if you watch other people, and as this slows down, you have two options on the true crime on this. And a lot of it is doesn't give you an opportunity to talk. A lot of it is just live streaming that people do out in front. And it's interesting stuff. Elise Brooks, I'm glad you're here from Kentucky. See, someone gets it. I am Shailene. Good to see you. So, hey, Primitive Lifeways, glad you're here. Kristen Melinda, all of my mods are fantastic. I really appreciate all of the effort. The Roulette Master is here. So here's the deal. Roulette Master, I hope you got all of those videos done. Hey, Catherine, everything is good here. If you caught last night's video, I was on with my my wife, the Mississippi Gulf Coast. I've spent time there before. The show that we did last night, Jay Rambo, Johnny J. Rambo, good to have you here. We did the Scientology thing for all of the people that, look at that, perfect timing. Way to come here. I told you, Dolores, as soon as I started talking to drop this comment, you were perfect. Your timing was excellent. Chickateri Cola. I'm kidding. I didn't tell Dolores that. Reese is lovely. Seeing you here, praising God for a community of like-minded people are working together to heal each other. Kudos to all of you. What a cool thing to say. Louisa, my South American friend, how are you? Louisa, I don't know if you've been told, but allegedly you and I might live in the same place. There's a lot of people that don't believe I'm in Ecuador. Aha. Do you remember this? Tracy said she was going to do a little research for us. This is what makes this community great. Okay.
You told me you were in Brazil. What do you mean Ecuador?
No, it's Ecuador, Johnny, not Brazil. Okay, Dad is 88. 3 major knee surgeries last year due to septic knee. Oh, no. He got out of a car, grabbed a walker, and walked up to the door, up 2 steps, and into the house in less than 2 minutes. Good to know. Yeah, I didn't think the 2-minute thing, a lot of people said nobody's going to get in there in that time. I thought that was actually a longer time than necessary. But, you know, I used to go into my house in the Catalina foothills, always through the garage. I would use a keypad. And once I would get inside, I would go and grab something out of the refrigerator, get something to drink. It was always an afterthought to close the garage door, go hit that little button. So sometimes it may not, it may take a little bit longer. Excellent. Thank you, Marissa Martin. And you know what? Everybody that I've sent over to my wife's channel, I know it stinks of nepotism, but everybody I've sent over to my wife's channel has absolutely loved it. Hello, Robin, and been very stoked about it. Reese is an awful lot of fun to watch. She's a warrior woman and a survivor, and she's a lot of fun to look at. She also has a sense of humor that is very reminiscent of George Carlin, who helped raise her. If you don't know that one, go over there and check it out. She'll tell you. Robert Shockey, is that Robert Shock Jr.? How are things going with everyone? Hopefully everybody is good. Making biscuits and watching from Stockton, California. All right. If you've been patient enough to sit through the Nancy Grace video that she just did, it's absolutely incredible to watch. She talks an awful lot about the tattoos on this guy's wrist, and she has an expert tattoo artist that comes in and talks to her. He's been tattooing for 30 years, which is fairly impressive. However, he didn't do any of those tattoos in prison, because if you watch that and he describes to you how tattoos work in prison and how the guards are smuggling in guns, tattoo guns. Look at that. Not enough of you are hitting that like button. We could be cooking right now if you people would just do your job. Thank you, Roberta. So let's look at this. because this is important stuff. The FBI is focusing in on the perp on the porch because his glove slid up. And this is the picture of it. Now, the first time you look at this, like I really blew this thing up. I tried to get AI to kind of enhance it. And the first time you look at it, you might think, is that hair? You know, what are we looking at right there? Because it is it could be anything. It isn't. It's a tattoo. And it brings up a lot of interesting questions. And Nancy Grace highlighted a lot of these. For instance, this guy really covered up, right? He wanted to make sure you couldn't see arms, you couldn't see anything. He wore the balaclava. Now, that could just be to hide his face. It also could mean that is a sleeve, right, that goes all the way up, and he may be tattooed on his head. They talked about the Southwest and some of the gangs that use a lot of imagery in tattoos. Now, that doesn't give us a lot to go on, does it? However, there are some things we can learn from just looking at that tattoo. And one of them is you don't see any color in it. People will call it black and gray work. A lot of people just call it prison ink. Inside prison, no matter what anyone tells you, you're not getting color, right? You're just not. Now, every once in a while, someone will come out and say, so look, I got this inside and there'll be red in it or there'll be blue in it. Sadly, as crazy as this sounds, they will take ink from, like, if there's a paint shop or something like that, they'll literally put paint in their body, which is terrifying, right? But that black ink is manufactured in prison, right? We don't get that from the street. Baklava. There you go, Roberta. I'm sorry, it is baklava. I have seen people make tattoo guns out of very little items, believe it or not. I'm going to tell you how you make a tattoo gun in prison because there's only a couple of options. For a while, they were dumb enough to allow in vibrating toothbrushes, right? The little ones that you buy that were vibrating toothbrushes. Then they realized you could make a tattoo out of it. Anything that vibrates or anything that goes in circles, inside there is a motor, right? It's just a small little motor. If you ever worked with an erector set as a child, it is the exact same thing. It's that little motor that you would hook up to batteries. Now, they will burn through batteries really quickly, and you kind of want more power than a couple of AA batteries are going to give you. So the tattoo artist makes a battery pack. And the way they do that is they take playing cards and they bend them into shape around batteries, and then they tape those. And they'll make a battery pack about this long, and they'll put a 6-pack of AA batteries into it. And then coming out the other side will be 2 wires. Those wires are usually purchased from guys that work at an electrical shop. If not, you can actually steal some of them. Yeah, people pick tattoos. This is a real thing, but it usually done in county jails. Normally, you don't see that done in prison because in prison, you can make a tattoo gun. But he's right. People will use staples. People will sharpen anything to make a tattoo gun. Yes, it is soot, and I will break down exactly how that works. This is very common in prison. But what you do is once you make that battery pack and you've got the wires that come out, you can take them off a phone line. If you ever see the little gray lines for phones, the yellow line is superfluous. It's not used for anything in case they need it at a later date. But if you just pull out all of that yellow line, it's not going to damage the ability for someone to make a phone call. Is that the inside or outside of the wrist? And does Dominic have a tattoo there? That's a great question. And I can't answer it. I can't. There are people that say the guy's got a wrist tattoo. I've not seen one. And normally I have a wrist tattoo. But unless you have something like a name or you're doing something like that on a wrist, usually wrist tattoos are going into a sleeve, right? They're going to do the hand. They're going to do all of it. And in prison, people tattoo their entire bodies. There's nothing else to do, right? Yes, Polynesian tattoos are the most crazy thing. They do it. Yeah, they take almost looks like a nail, a small needle on a stick, and they tap it. It's a brutal way to get a tattoo. But in prison, when you make a tattoo gun, it goes out to a small little motor, right? On that motor, they will build something around it to make it comfortable to hold on to. Some guys use plastic forks. They all have their own little thing that they do. But the motor has a wire that goes right to the pack, and it's taped to the arm. So they'll have it up here, and the gun is here, and they just go in and start tattooing. That little post that comes out of the motor spins very fast. They will either put a hole in that or they'll attach something to the top of it so that they can put a tattoo needle on it. And that vibration will make the tattoo, it'll go around in circles and drive the needle up and down. They take a Bic pen and they take the plastic part that has the ink in it, and they try to find one where the ink has gone all the way down, and they try to find it about that long. It's called a barrel. The needle is going to go through that barrel and then come out the other side. So it'll come out right at the tip of a regular pen, and it just goes up and down through that. That is how the gun is made. And then when you make the ink, and this is something I know a lot about because once I decided I was no longer a dirtbag and I wasn't going to be in the drug game and I wasn't going to run a sports book, my hustle was making ink. And I would take a saltine box, right? A box that saltines come in, and you rip holes in the bottom of it for airflow. And then you have to make a candle. And what you're burning is going to end up being very important in this. Most people will use hair gel, or you can use Vaseline. You can use all types of anything kind of petroleum based is going to burn. But you make a wick for it by taking apart a blanket, right? And you spin the line of the blanket, and you spin it until it's ready to curl on itself. Then you pull it and then spin it in the opposite direction. It's just how rope is made. Now you've got a wick, and you put it inside this wax. Murray's hair gel, right? Or mustache wax is a really popular one. It's the one I always used. Bergamot, anything that's going to be able to burn. And you're basically making a candle with a very long wick. You get the wick with some of that petroleum stuff on it, light it on fire. Normally, you make the candle inside a tin can. And you're going to have to go and check the thing about every 30 minutes. But you put it inside this box and you let it burn. At the top, ideally, you want some tin foil. Something that's going to catch all of that soot. As it gets up, it starts to get black. You know, if you ever put a lighter to tin foil, you see that carbon start to develop instantly. You do this for a really, really long time, right? You do this for a super long time. Normally, I would burn like 8 things of hair gel into that. And about every 4 hours, you got to take that thing off, carefully scrape all of that carbon off, and you put it in paper or an envelope. And when it's done, you put it in a 1 ounce bottle, right? These teeny little bottles, they only hold 1 ounce of liquid. And it's basically so stuffed with the soot that you can't get anything else in there. Then you put in a little bit of water. And inside, you'll put either a ball bearing, if you can get one, a heavy ball bearing, or small round rocks are good, so that you can begin to shake it. And in the beginning, you can't even hear noise. And over time, you're breaking the soot down into the water. For whatever reason, they say if you add four chunks of freeze-dried coffee, it helps break the stuff down. And then you continue to shake and shake and shake and shake and shake and shake. And that process can take 2 weeks of shaking. You just sit there driving your cellmate nuts as it goes click, 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 click. Look at this. That would be the wife. Hi, Bunny Snugger. You know what? I have vowed that every time you say that, Reese, I'm going to do this one here and go, I don't know if you know my wife. That's her from the other day. But you break this stuff down. We were talking about you earlier, Reese. People loved the stream last night. Very impressive. It was great. And you covered me, which was good. But you keep shaking this and break this stuff down. And this goes on for such a long period of time. And the test is you go and take 1 drop of this stuff and drop it into a toilet. And it'll go down and start to put rings out, black rings. If you've ever seen somebody that has prison ink and the ink looks incredibly green, right? That is somebody that didn't burn enough soot, if you understand what I'm saying. This here is a tattoo that I did. This is a black tattoo that I did. That I made the ink for. I made really, really dark ink. And then you sell the bottle to tattoo artists. Where do they get the needles from? Excellent question, Sharon. There are a couple of options for where you get the needles from. One of them, if you have a music department, you want the high E string off of a guitar. That's ideal, right? That is absolutely ideal. So because it's very, very thin and going into your skin isn't going to hurt much. And they sharpen up the point a little bit. The other option is you take the spring out of a clicker ballpoint pen and you heat it over fire and pull and pull and pull. No, Tara, this is prison tattoos. And you continue to pull this thing until you get it completely straight. Those are your 2 options. Everyone that I ever did was an E string. I was always blessed to be able to get a very, very thin gauged tattoo needle. Now on the street, when they shade something, right? So if you can look at this, you look at my bunny, there are parts of this bunny that are darker and there are parts of it that are lighter. That's the gray. You're going to make it darker or lighter. Today, I heard a guy say the way they do that in prison is by adding alcohol. Never seen that done. And I've seen thousands of prison tattoos done. I lived for a year and a half with a tattoo artist who literally from the time the door opened until the time they locked it down was in there tattooing on somebody. So I've never seen that used. What it is just how heavy they are with their hand. So they take the top of a toothpaste cap and turn it upside down. So you have the little opening at the top and they drop the ink into that and they dip and they go to work and they dip and they go to work. He's wearing gloves just like a tattoo artist would. where people, they say, oh, everybody gets HIV or they all get Hep C. The way that happens is the cop comes walking by and the guy picks up that cap and dumps it back into the ink. This is why I always made my own ink. I made my own barrel. I made my own needle because I didn't want anybody's blood coming in contact with my body, right? So, and people have gotten really good at it. These days, unless you're in a lockdown unit and you can't do enough, right, to be able to make it happen, sometimes that stuff will get passed around. The tattoo needles you keep in case you want another one. And believe it or not, you put it in an envelope, right? And you tape it to your locker and you write on it, tattoo needles. Don't get stuck, right? Be careful, boss. Whatever you do, be careful, tattoo needles. Because if you're super respectful to cops, they're not going to write you up for that tattoo needle. They don't want to get injected with it, right? So you don't try to hide that stuff. At the higher levels of penitentiary, like when I was at Victorville, before you would get a tattoo, and I got all of my Alice in Wonderland stuff was done at Victorville. You would go down to the office and say, we're going to be tattooing in cell 62. Are you cool with that? And the cop would say, yeah, put a lookout out. I don't want to get caught. Like if his boss comes in or whatever. But the cop would walk by, sometimes walk in and look at it. They know you're going to do this. What they don't want is for you to stab people. This is kind of their biggest fear is that people are going to kill one another, right? Had to be cured from Hep C. It's bad. Roadrunner, I'm sorry to hear that, especially if you used interferon, right? They cure everybody in prison now. They do it with Harvoni. You get 80 pills. I spontaneously healed. And I know that sounds absolutely ridiculous. When they told me that in prison, I thought that they were lying. But it absolutely turned out to be legit. They say 1.5 million this happens to, but I spontaneously healed. My cellie just did the shading for 2 books. Yeah, 2 books is cheap. To get this tattoo, it took 60 hours. Now, if you probably have tattoos and you're going 60 hours. When you go into a tattoo shop, when it comes time to shade, they'll use a 5 needle. So the needles are welded at the front. So there'll be 5 of them or even 7 of them. They're called shaders. The outline is done with 1 needle. It hurts like hell, right? Then they go in and they use the shaders. There is absolutely no way in hell that you're going to get a shader in prison, right? It's just not something that's going to happen. So this was single needle, which is why it took, 60 hours. It's a really, really long process tattoo. And to pay him, I had to buy him heroin. He would get ripped and start tattooing. Tara, we'll catch you on the flip side. Thank you. Frozen fingers happen. Never had a tattoo, says Robert. Well, it's probably a good idea. I mean, most people get, regret tattoos at some time or another in their life. I personally do not. There aren't tattoos that I regret for that, because honestly, every one of them represents a period of time in my life. Even if those were bad decisions, it's a period of time in my life that I don't mind looking back at. I didn't sleeve out like most guys in prison do. A lot of guys in prison do their necks. Now they're speculating that this could be part of a Mexican gang. Now, because I'm in another country, I usually will never say the name of a gang out of respect, but there are 2 very big tattoo gangs. This is a great comment. No regrets. Thank you, Jay Cruz. No, she's in Tennessee. Yeah, no regrets is funny. I love that. And I've seen misspelling. You would not believe it. There was a guy who had Michael on the side of his head. And I go, is Michael your son? He goes, no, Michelle. It's my wife. I said, I'm sorry. And he goes, yeah, that says Michelle. I said, no, it doesn't. It says Michael. And he goes, well, you can spell it that way. I said, you could spell it B-O-B, but it says Michael, right? And another guy had scared for life right here. And I said to him, it's an unusual tattoo. Why did you get scared for life? And he goes, it says scarred. I said, I assure you it doesn't. And he argued with me for like 20 minutes. He's like, I've had it for 4 years. I said, no one has said to you, why do you have scared for life on your neck? And he goes, no, I had to go and get a dictionary literally to prove to this guy. And he was unhappy. But those kind of things happen all the time. They even make patterns in prison. If you've ever written on something and they'll say it's in triplicate, you got to push down hard. One of those sheets in there is carbon. So they will trace the outline of what they want to do. Thank you. You look fantastic and green, and you're keeping free speech alive. I appreciate that. I have gone 5 minutes without saying anything bad. Trust me, I'll get to it though. They can make a outline. They'll draw on this thing, and there's little microscopic bubbles of ink inside those papers. That's what makes them go all the way through. So when they do the outline, it comes through to the other side. They'll take a deodorant stick, just like they do at any other tattoo shop, and rub it on you, and then press that on and pull it off. The tattoo artist that did my Alice in Wonderland stuff did not use any outlines. Did not use any. He put a book up and looked at images and just went to work drawing it on me, and which was scary as hell until he got the first one done. I thought, man, this could be a nightmare. But he was an award-winning tattoo artist. He won a ton of awards in the real world and came from Mexico to the United States for a tattoo convention, and they were waiting on him. Is it true they use guitar strings in prison to make tats? They do, is if they can get a high E string. That is what all of mine were done with. But there are two very prominent Mexican prison gangs, right? And they started in California. There's the ones up top of the state. They call themselves norteños, right? And then you have the ones on the southern part of California that call themselves sureños. So the northerners and the southerners. The sureño is a much larger prison gang, and there are smaller gangs that ride with that gang. Very much like the Aryan Brotherhood runs everything for white guys, but you have all of these smaller satellite gangs that answer to the Aryan Brotherhood. The sureños carry a lot of weight. They have a group that they answer to called the MA, which is literally the Mexican mafia. There aren't a lot of them in there, but they're the big homies that call the shots for everything. They get their entire heads done very often. It's a helmet. They do the entire head. They'll have little things that come down here on the side. It is referred to as a helmet. And they will sleeve out their arms, their legs, all of it. And there's always the wrist covered, and it always goes up onto the hand. So when you look at this again, hey, Rip, what's happening, my brother? I'm glad that you are here. If you look at this right here, someone said they think that's a shirt. I do not. I do not, for any reason, think that's a shirt. I absolutely think that's skin. And it very much looks like prison work to me. Now, there is a lot of Aztec imagery with the Sureño gang. They do a lot of stuff that looks like it's on the side of a temple in Mexico, right? Quetzalcoatl, the serpent god from the old Aztec religions, are often worked into the tattoos. So, but I see down toward the bottom. If you see the thing that people said, hey, that might be a cross, I'm not seeing that. It looks to me like if you look right below the biggest black thing you can see there, it looks like below there it almost has that imagery of stones. I think very easily this could be a prison tat. And this becomes very interesting for a lot of reasons. Hold one second. What really becomes interesting with this is that normally you would like to get your tattoos done by somebody in your gang, right? So if there's a Sureño tattoo artist or there's a Norteño tattoo artist, but very often you will end up in a unit where they don't have anybody from your gang that tattoos. There's a great artist in there, but he has nothing to do with your particular gang. They will get permission, right, to say, this guy's a white boy, can he tattoo on me? The Sureños and the white guys ride together, right? We're allies in prison. So very often it could be a white guy putting that on. There's not a lot of loyalty. A lot of these tattoo artists aren't in gangs. If you're the person that put this on that guy's wrist, there's a decent chance you could look at that and go, I know exactly what that is, right? For real. And the proof to that is, I can't tell you how many times in prison someone would come through and the guy would go, you look familiar. And he'd go, let me see your tats, right? For real. And he'd go, yeah, I did your work, man. And he'd list off the 3 prisons they were at. And he's like, yeah, oh no, you did this. Because if you do enough time, you may not be friends with the tattoo artist. You might just pay him $250 to give you a sleeve, right? But that goes away pretty quickly. That looks like a hat, says Mopman. It could be. If this guy's in prison, would he be in CODIS? Absolutely, he would. If he's in prison, if he's been to prison, he would be in CODIS. Now, if you go into prison and you're not a gang member, right? So I went in, they strip you out naked and they take pictures of you, right? All of your tattoos up close. It's a very uncomfortable process, especially if you got a lot of tattoos, and I do. So they come in and take pictures of all of your tats. If by some chance you are in a gang, they're going to also tattoo you on the way out. Right? I was not gang affiliated. So on the way out the door, they did not take pictures of any of the tattoos that I got while in prison. So they know what tattoos I came in with, but they don't know what tattoos I left with. If you are part of what they call an STG, which is a specific threat group, which means you're a gang member, then before you leave prison, they are going to strip you down, right? They will strip you down to nothingness, and they will take pictures of all of your tats, and it will go into a system, state and federal wide. Every gang tattoo is photographed, right? And guys walk in with no ink and they leave covered in head to toe. The only time you get caught is if you disrespect them. So you go down to the chow hall and you got a tattoo on your neck that's obviously new. When you first get a tattoo, not only do you see the work, the black, the gray and all that, it's flaming red around it from all of the needle going in and out of your body for 5 hours, right? So if they see that, then you're going to get written up for getting fresh ink. They get super pissed off about it. You go to the hole. If they're in a bad mood, they can even ship you to a new yard. If you're at a high custody yard, like you're at Victorville, they're just going to write you a ticket. You're going to lose 7 to 9 days of good time and go right back to your unit, right? But at the lower levels, FCIs, but by the time a guy has sleeved out his entire arms, right, there are non-gang members that do that, but it's kind of more rare. Gang members do it because things you do within the gang earn you ink. You'll hear the term all the time. Did you earn all that ink? Like you see a guy that has a swastika tattoo. You didn't just go in and say, put a swastika on me. Right? The white gangs don't allow that to happen. You have to earn that. And I would feel really messed up if I told you exactly how you earn that. Let's just put it this way. There are 2 options. One they refer to as blood on the stick, which means you stabbed somebody of a different race and you were ordered to do it. That will get you either a swastika or lightning bolts. And those are the 2 symbols. Now, if they catch you with that, now you're going to be, you know what? I don't know that it's that. Although a lot of guys look at me. I went in there and got Alice in Wonderland, right, all over me. That doesn't make you look particularly tough. I have the Cheshire Cat. I've got the Mad Hatter. I've got the bunny up there with an exploding clock. I didn't go for the hard look, but a lot of guys just get skulls. I can't tell you how many times when I lived with a cellmate that someone would walk in and say, "Hey, just make me a sleeve," and the guy would go, "What do you want on it?" "I don't care." How bad is that? People say tattoos don't hurt. Are they lying? Here's the deal. Once they start drilling on you, the endorphins kick in and you're not going to hurt the same way because just like eating peppers, once the endorphins kick in, that's just your body's natural way of giving you painkillers. 900 of you in here, do me a favor, smack that like button, hit subscribe and hit the bell for notification. When I go live, you'll know about it. Please do that. And check out Relatable Reese, my wife. And of course, hit up Chase the Heat. That's my wife. She was on yesterday. If you haven't seen that video, you should. She's absolutely an incredible content creator. And everyone I send over there thanks me. I remember a snitch got tagged on his forehead backwards. Yes, when he changed pods. I was at Lewisburg Penitentiary, and you don't go outside for any reason. It's a 23-in-1 permanent unit, permanent prison. Everybody in there was on 23-in-1. So you're locked down 23 hours a day. You get out 1 hour a day for rec time, and the white boys have to do it 365 days a year. Rain or shine, you have to do it. So I'm sitting there and a guy goes by and his entire forehead was black, down one half of his face. And the cop that was walking me in handcuffs, I said to him, "Why in the name of God would you ever do that? Right? Why would you ever do that? That is just the worst looking tattoo I've ever seen." He said, "Well, it's a lot better than baby raper," which is what he had tattooed on his face. He had been in a 4-man unit and they found out what his crimes were and held that dude down and tattooed his face. So yeah, that kind of stuff happens. Rat, I've seen somebody with rat tattooed, snitch. Those kind of things do happen. See that? Another happy customer. There are 2 words you can't say to somebody in prison: punk and bitch. It's an instant fist fight, 100 out of 100 times, because the fist fight happens because the guy that says that to you, you have to fight. If you don't fight him, your race is going to fight you, and it's going to be 5 of them. They're going to beat the hell out of you, take all your stuff, and you're going to get shipped to the next yard. I was 14 years old when I fell in love with Alice in Wonderland. Were drugs involved? Kind of, right? The first time I read it, I was tripping. However, and I read it from cover to cover while tripping, but it's lasted a lot longer. I've never gone down that rabbit hole that way again. I studied the hell out of it. It's if Alice in Wonderland were written today, Trump would be in there as a character. Everything in that book has meaning. There's nothing in there that's just put there to entertain a kid. And if you read the book, don't read the one that they make for kids, but read the original one. It's not a kid's book. It's not. It's a very, very cool. It's a very cool story, and it's heavy duty. Jimmy Hoffa and Al Capone were at Lewisburg, I think. Every single gangster you can name off the top of your head was at Lewisburg. That is where all of the gangsters from the Northeast went, and it was on the 2nd floor, right, is where they all – and it's one particular unit because the doors didn't lock. You could open them. So even during a lockdown, all the gangsters could get together. When you see the scene in Goodfellas where they're cooking, that was supposed to be, allegedly, the multi-purpose room, like the room where the TV was at Lewisburg. Mafia Row, J Block, 2nd floor. That is also where I did my entire rip in Lewisburg. And the first time I was walking in there, I went, God, what an ugly unit. It's like 160 feet long, and it's got low ceilings, and it's almost 100 years old now. So it's just disgusting. And the cop goes, yeah, but every gangster that ever lived was in this unit. And so, and they rotate you when you're in the SMU. So I was in every single one of those cells. So I have absolutely slept in the cell that Jimmy Hoffa did, and Henry Hill, and Paulie, and all of those people. It's there. Lewisburg, Pennsylvania. But I've been to, I went to 9 or 10 prisons in the feds. They move you around every time you punch somebody. But in all honesty, the pain of tattoos, if you get one on your elbow, if you get it anywhere near your armpit, that one on my back hurt like you wouldn't believe. There are certain places. Top of your foot's kind of uncomfortable. Your ankle is brutal. I think I see the same pattern below on the material, which would dismiss the suggestion it is a tattoo. Well, the FBI and all of their geniuses believe that is absolutely a tattoo. And if you say you see the pattern, I think you're talking about the coat. But if you look from the glove to the white sleeve, so when you look at this guy, the Porch pirate, right? And he's over there doing his dirt on the front porch of Nancy Guthrie. Let me see if I can find a good one here. I think that'll show it pretty well. In theory. All right, you see the white right below the glove? That's stitching on so it either a shirt or a jacket ends with that kind of material, right? So what we're looking at with that white, and then you've got the glove. Now, if you go back and look at the photo that we have up of the tattoo, now look at that again while I'm talking about it. You see that white right there? Okay, so now you see the white. That's what we were looking at. Now the glove comes apart from that, and that is most assuredly skin. That's not the pattern. And even if you do see that pattern on the jacket, how would it go past the white ribbing that is at the bottom of the sleeve? I assure you that's a tattoo, and the FBI are all over it like stink on poop. They're all over it because that absolutely did you ever see American Me? Is it a true depiction? Absolutely not. I mean, prisons are violent, but here's the biggest BS that you're going to see. You would believe 100% that if you're in prison, you're either getting stabbed or raped, right? Every single day. Rapes don't happen in prison like people think they do. It's not a common occurrence, at least in the prisons that I went to. The white guys will kill you for that. If they find out that you raped somebody for any reason, even if that guy's a weirdo, it makes you a sex offender instantly. Sex offenders are killed in prison. They don't look kindly on rape, right? Years ago, it was very, very different. But once they started really coming down really hard and killing chomos, people that do kiddie porn. There we go. Can't say that one. The people that get booked for child porn or child molestation or any of that stuff. Anybody that goes and rapes somebody is considered the same way. In the 13 years I did, I saw one rape the entire time I was in there. I'm pretty sure I heard one, right? In the vents, it was pretty uncomfortable. But there was one where at Lewisburg, the guy's cellmate had a heart attack. You want to talk about a bad day? The guy had a heart attack in the unit, and there's no hitting a button there. You got to kick the door and wait for somebody to come up. That is the term, CJ. And you got to wait for a cop to show up there when it takes sometimes minutes. Well, this guy doesn't start kicking the door, right, at all. He just pulls off the guy's jumpsuit and starts raping him. And so your day went from I'm having a heart attack to I'm getting raped. And then when the cops show up, they're not coming in there until they gas the hell out of that cell. So that guy then got gassed like you wouldn't believe. But I was on the rec yard the next day, and the guy said, green light to that dude, right? Doesn't matter what race he is. You can stab him. If you're a white guy, you can stab him. You're a black guy, you can stab him. You're a Mexican guy, we want that dude dead. So it's really frowned upon. Never go after the biggest guy. If you're new, just show respect, makes things go smoother. That is the dumbest crap I've ever heard, and people say it all the time. Get in there and find the biggest dude in there and punch him in the face. That's just going to get you beat up. Nobody's particularly impressed by that. It's actually pretty funny. When I was in prison, I ran my metal cup across the bars and yelled, Antarctica, Antarctica. If you yell Attica in prison, that is a completely different charge, believe it or not. It's called inciting a riot. I saw somebody joking around yell it, and it was just a very, very different, it was a very, very different situation. They came in there instantly. He was gone the next day, and it's called inciting a riot. They will not let you do it. He was also caught robbing banks in a different way, and the FBI caught him as he was walking out of the bank. Wow, that's a bummer. That's a terrible way to get caught. No disrespect to the captain. I don't think he did a lot of recon. Yeah, that's whole time, right? They'll ship you off the yard. They won't allow that. And there's also nothing metal in there anymore. They don't allow your silverware is plastic, your cups are plastic, everything is plastic. Jen, thank you. So the FBI is going to start putting this through a database, and they're going to have to start. So the first thing they're going to do is use a computer, and they're going to do just like you do, right? You take a picture of something, you can go to Google and do a Google image search, except the FBI's got a separate kind of a database where they can put this through and just try to compare it to pictures that have been taken of inmates on the way out of prison, where you're doing all of this stuff for gang members. I would absolutely guess that this guy has been in the system. You can go into a tattoo shop and say, "Hey, I just want." Thank you, Jen. You look fantastic in green. Welcome to the boat. You absolutely can go in there and say, "I want black and gray work," right? I want it in single needle. We used to call it the thug makeover. You get prison tattoos on the street. It's called the thug makeover, and they don't respect it a lot in prison when they go, "Where'd you get your ink done?" At a place called Itching for Ink in Las Vegas. Yeah, that doesn't go over well. But when you look at that stuff there, that to me looks very much like single needle work. That the lines that you see on there that just look like it was drawn with a pencil are not particularly fine lines. It would also lead me to believe that it's older work. The people inside prison, the tattoos have gotten so much better. I mean, when I tell people my tattoo was done in prison, people always go, "No way," because it's really pretty incredible work, right? But there are still hacks in there. And that to me does not look like some of the solid gray work that I've seen. But we will see. Again, if you look at that black thing right there, the thickest mark right to the right of it looks like a bone to me. I think this is probably pretty standard prison imagery. I think that, at least to me, that's what it looks like. I've seen a lot of prison ink in 13 years. I can't begin to tell you how much prison ink that I saw. It's really kind of a big deal. Oh, he got caught for scamming the elderly. Oh, bummer. Do you think the cartel is involved somehow? Absolutely not, Jay Cruz, and I'll tell you why. Number one, they're efficient to beat crap, and they're not going in there and killing an 84-year-old woman or making her disappear. If they went and snatched her, they did it for money, and they'd get paid. They would have left behind a ransom letter. All kidnappings kind of work the same way, right? They all kind of work the same way. And what I mean by that is you don't want the people who you just took someone from to call the police. You don't want them to call the FBI. You want them to call you. You set up a way for them to call you. There have been reported cases where they leave a burner phone on the table and they have that going to a burner phone, right? And the second that that's over, they're going to throw that phone away. They'll get on the phone and say, "This is your one shot." Normally, successful kidnappings like this are over and done with in about 24 hours. The people get their money and it's over. And if you look across the board, most people, you think of these huge numbers, about $29,000 is the average that most people get for kidnappings. Now, granted, this is worldwide, so it brings in, people from Mexico and whatever, but they're just trying to get paid. It's a business. It's not, this looks very different to me than a professional. And they're also vicious. If you don't respond to their first request, you might get an ear or a hand in the mail. They do not care. They are legendarily vicious, right? Absolutely vicious. He started at 15 until his early 20s. Damn. My brother came home with bad tattoos. Dad had the worst ones covered up. Yeah, well, there's a lot of cover-ups that are done in prison. You see a lot of that. And you see a lot of really funny tattoos. I knew a guy that had 9 girls' names on his chest, and he would get, when he'd leave prison, because he would get them done inside, he would get a void stamp put over all of the girls' names. And I was like, after 7, you didn't go, maybe this is a bad idea? May have been a prepaid job. I believe that this was probably a prepaid job. You know what? No disrespect to him, but I would bet you my eyes that he didn't invent fishing. Not trying to be a dick, but I literally have heard 9 people tell me that in my prison career. No joke. I've also heard 9 people tell me that they were the starters of whatever crime you could name. Everybody says, I was the first guy that ever did that. It's one of those things that gets said a lot, and I'm not busting on them. I'm just saying I've heard that a lot. Do me a favor, everybody, smack that like button, hit subscribe, and hit the bell for notification. And I'm not busting on the guy. I respect what he's doing. And I think he's doing a pretty decent job, right? For real. But that it's just one of those things that you hear constantly. Everybody, there's a big expression inside. Come to prison and be whatever you want. Your story will, I know who he is. Your story doesn't come across on your paperwork. It's going to say you were arrested for 2113 A, B, or C. That's bank robbery. It's not going to say, here's how they did it, right? Now, chances are he was not going to be a 21A or a B because it wasn't that kind of, it wasn't that kind of a crime if he wasn't going in there and hitting a teller, right? If he was doing it through phishing scams or whatever. But phishing scams were invented about 8 days after the computer started sending emails, right? It's been going on since the dawn of time. And I'm not busting his balls. I promise you I'm not. That guy was hired, not the mastermind. The guy on the front porch, I don't think was the mastermind of this. I've always said this, I believe this was a 3-man job. But I will tell you this, with every day that goes by, I'm never gonna think that with the cast of characters we have, that the best bet for this is not the son-in-law. However, with every day that goes by, it makes you really start wondering whether or not they should have an easy. He's a very large YouTuber, Roberta, very successful YouTuber. It makes you wonder whether or not this is a good candidate, because when you start getting to this depth, right? Interesting. If Tommaso is a teddy bear, maybe Annie is a fierce tiger with years of pent-up anger towards her sister, such that this plan was conceived by her without Tommaso's knowledge, at least at the beginning. I think that that's a possibility. I think when you start looking at motive in this is a very difficult thing to look for motive, right? Super hard thing to do to find motive. But the kind of family dynamic is something that really lends itself to these kind of motives, right? This crap happens with families. That's why 8 out of 10 times you're going to be looking for a family member in these kind of things. Hi, good night, everyone. I'm new here. I have something to say. To me, they should ask more questions of the family, investigation more. I know the family has been cleared. Yeah, the family's been cleared. The family was cleared twice. The first time within the first, 5 days? And then the next day, they sent over a team of FBI to go through their house, the son-in-law's house, for 5 days. Take photos. They grabbed the car. They haven't returned it. These things don't scream you've been cleared. I think it's more of a message to say, hey, we don't want you to lawyer up, right? They want to be able to continue to ask questions if at all possible. Besides everything the sheriff has done, what do you think has been the biggest mistake or detriment to this case? The first 48 hours, every single thing that was done in the first 48 hours to me was just really poorly done. They released the house back to the family at hour 30. They stopped the search looking for this woman at hour 30. Now, I don't know why, if you knew this was a homicide, and I don't believe she's still alive. You know what I mean? I don't. There's no reason she should be. If you're not trying to get paid on her, unless you're just a sicko that wants to torture an old woman, and I don't think her heart would hold up much. And I'm praying that that isn't the case, obviously. Nobody wants to hear that. But I don't think she's still alive. Maybe they thought that that this was a murder scene, and that's why they didn't bring in the FBI. I don't believe that personally, but that's a possibility. I believe that Nanos is an egomaniac. He loves sitting in front of a camera more than I do. Right. And this is what I do for work. This guy loves doing interviews. He loves the sound of his own voice. There's a really interesting article that came out, I believe today. If it wasn't today, it was yesterday, about the fact that a lot of the stuff in his resume may have been, what's the right word for this? Inaccurate. How would that be? Instead of me trying to make him look bad, there are inaccuracies in his resume. And it's not like, hey, I was this and he never was, but dates don't line up. And when dates don't line up, that usually means there's gaps in your work history. And that's always an interesting thing. Why is Nanos being sued for $1 million? By an inmate. And, as a former inmate, inmates sue people. It's what they do. They've got nothing but time on their hands, and they have access to a law library. They learn how to become a really good paralegal, and they start to think they're a lawyer. And I knew one guy that had 72 lawsuits going. They've changed the laws some to make it a little bit more difficult to do this. So in the beginning, when I first went to prison, you didn't have to pay for any of your filings. If you file one lawsuit that is deemed frivolous, it's going to cost you about $460 to file the next one. And they don't care. There are inmates in there that have money and their families have money, and all they do all day long is file lawsuits trying to get everybody involved. And it will say, I'm suing Lewisburg Federal Penitentiary, the warden, the captain, et al. And then it'll list 60 names going all the way up to the attorney general. This is done constantly. He is also being sued by a Republican who is running for his position. Yes, there is. He has, I think, 4. There's either 3 or 4, I think. Don't quote me on that. Well, I just quoted myself on that. But why won't they show anything from the inside to keep skepticism down? That's a great question. Why don't they tell us if they gave polygraphs to the family? That's rumors that are flying around all over the place. Yeah. They sued they used a polygraph on the family. If that's the truth, you could go like this, right? It would be over that fast. JLR has the world record for the most lawsuits ever filed, and then sued Guinness World Records. Well, I'll be damned. He's a paper pusher. Okay. I never got into the lawsuit thing. Never went down that road. I could have been part of a class action suit, but somehow I was the only guy at Lewisburg that didn't get poisoned one day. I'm not kidding. I think there was 6 of us out of 1,300. Everybody was dying. You could hear them throwing up. It was just a really bad case of food poisoning. I ate the same thing everybody else ate. Didn't do a damn thing to me. I was blessed. Do you think that a woman is involved, being they detained both men that lived with their mothers? Do I think that woman is involved? You're talking about Day. I personally, look, there's a lot of really odd coincidences that tie them into this fetish culture and these balls that they threw. That's kind of interesting to me. But I don't know that I like any of them for that. I really don't. It's hard to tell. It really is, because there have been some really sort of classic cases of this. One that jumps off the page was one out of Boulder, Colorado, where a homeless man, the entire world thought this homeless man did it, and they were terrorizing him because of it. And turns out that the cops thought they had the right man 4 times, and they kept going in and saying, all right, we're going to test him for DNA. We should have him tomorrow. And everybody's DNA just kept coming back clean. And it turned out to be somebody that answered an ad in Craigslist and ended up, allegedly, he said the woman wanted to be killed and was trying to hire a hitman. It was a crazy case. Kelly, thank you. Appreciate the support. You guys keep free speech alive. That's why I can say rape. That's why I can say child pornography, right? They want to mess with our ability to speak to you. And I'm not going to let it happen. And you guys keep me alive. Why won't the family come forward and say they have been polygraphed? Well, that's a really great question, isn't it? Hey, Buffy, why won't the family come forward and say anything? Right? Everybody's pissed off that I like the son-in-law for this. The son-in-law, normally, if this were any other case, he would have come out in the first week and say, I heard that they said that I'm a suspect in this. It was reported by Ashley Banfield, and a lot of people are talking about this. That bastard from the Lifeboat is talking about it. I just want you to know I'm not a suspect in this, and we want prayers for this. This is usually what happens. In fact, even guilty people sometimes come forward and say, like Stephen Stearns, wasn't me, right? It's very unusual for them to run and hide. And he didn't come out in public until he had an opportunity to go over to the crime scene and help them install cameras, right? He was the guy that oversaw all of them putting in the new security system. And that at the same period of time is when he walked out with his sister-in-law and his wife to lay some flowers and a card at the memorial that is sort of popped up right in front of Nancy Guthrie's house. It's suspicious as hell to me. And I know that people get angry every single time I put up this picture, so I'm going to put it up again. The FBI has not released more because they are still working on video and leads. Yeah, but they didn't mind telling us that they have a sniffer that can chase down her pacemaker. Why did we need to know that? Why did we need to know where the backpack was sold at? Right? What he has done is telegraphed information to the bad guys and told the people that could be calling in with tips, nothing that might get you, less stupid tips and more productive tips. But this is Tommaso Cione and his wife, Annie. And Annie is the sister of Savannah Guthrie and obviously the daughter of Nancy Guthrie. This is them shortly after the abduction, leaving in their car and hiding their faces from the paparazzi. People can say everybody deals with things in a different way. I've never seen anybody deal with things like this. Right? This is not usually what you see in an abduction case. Your biggest fear in an abduction case is that the people are going to stop talking about it. People like me are going to move on to the next story. So you want to constantly be talking to the press and doing everything you can to keep your loved one trending, for lack of a better way to put it, right? You go out there and say, the family we appreciate all of your prayers. You saw what Savannah said. That's usually the blueprint for what people do when they have somebody that they love that's been abducted or kidnapped. This is unusual. You can disagree with me. I won't be mad at you. But make no mistake, that's not usually the playbook, right? Seems to be that Annie is isn't capable of tying her own shoes. You know, it's easy to be an armchair quarterback, right?
Metal crystals, though.
But yeah, she can sell crystals. She has a little place where she makes jewelry out of gems, not the diamond gems and rubies and things like that, but out of crystals, which kind of is in line with her religion, which is a little bit different than Mom's. Searching, talking. Yeah, there you go. See this? Obviously, I couldn't pronounce that name if my life depended on it. So I'm just going to go with girl. Understands true crime, because this is usually what happens. You go out and you walk with the searchers. You show up at every candlelight vigil, right? You make sure that your loved one stays in the press cycle, because your best hope, especially in something that doesn't work well this way. Just curious, if it was the family, why would they not disable the cameras long before that night? Great question, because those cameras, even if you don't pay for the subscription, send you an alert every time somebody comes to the door. And if you come home and there's a package on your front steps and you didn't get an alert, you're going to know the cameras are out, right? It's something that, especially if, I'm hooked up to the same network of my wife, Relatable Reese. If you've never gone by there, check out her channel. You'll thank me later. She was on last night. Incredible show. But every time somebody or an animal walks by any of her cameras, I get an alert. And she lives in the sticks, so animals do go by there. And her son will go out and lift weights. I'm constantly getting updates all day long. If one day went by that I didn't get one, I'd know something was wrong real quick. And I think that's probably the reason. Tommy, saw your wife. Listen to her speak. She is a very pretty lady. You are a very lucky man to have such a beautiful wife. You are absolutely right. I am. And she's also just a beautiful soul. She really is. And has had Loretta Hauser. My cat is a great cat. Bit of a pain in the you-know-what today, though. Both of them have been driving me nuts. They don't want me to sleep anymore. But, Reese survived Scientology. If you don't know that cult, right, you should really check out the last 2 shows we've done on it here, because it's the biggest crime going on in America. It's been going on a really long time. Good night, Roberta. You're good. Thank you for spending some time with us. I think the idea of Tommaso being involved with installing the new cameras is suspect. Yeah, it makes me uncomfortable too. And if you understand the process of how these things get put in, even if they're wireless, you're drilling into plaster. If you've never done that, right? But if you've ever drilled into plaster, you're throwing dust everywhere. You know what that does to a crime scene? But the crime scene has been turned back how many times? I love listening to Brian Enton. I think he's he's doing an incredible job on this. Whether you like his delivery, everybody can argue about that stuff. The second press conference, the head FBI dude looked like he was going to knock Nanos out. Yeah, there's also been times where you can see people from the FBI literally say to him, hey, you got to go away. White 2010 Kia Soul. Yeah, you're talking about the, they said, Nanos said in an interview that they're looking through hundreds of thousands of automobile images, right, trying to track down. So obviously it's going to be more than one car. There are not 100,000 Kia Souls. So those cameras that they say don't exist, I promise you they exist. There's about 200 of them in the Tucson area. They may not be snapping pictures of license plates, and this is getting screwed up, right? But there are red light cameras, and then there are cameras on every single street. You understand? Every single ATM has a camera. And if you have an ATM on a street that you think those cars were at, they're pulling that from everybody. And they're looking for a specific time because they believe they have the timeline down, right? So we're looking at that time period, say 15 minutes, in either direction of when that pacemaker stopped syncing with the watch in her house. And they're looking at every single convenience store. They're looking at every single ATM. Every business now has cameras in the front, and all of them usually have backup, and that backup stays a long time. Did Annie or Tommaso take care of Nancy's bills? That's a great question, and we don't know. The idea that they may have stopped trying to pay makes a lot of sense to me. However, it would also be a huge red flag, right? I'm intrigued about Reese's Scientology experience and recovery. I was formerly a Jehovah's Witness as a teenager. There's a lot of parallels, not from a theology standpoint, but from a trauma and control group standpoint. So I'm glad that you're out. FBI sheriff pretending not to work together on a cover-up for embarrassment to MSM before January 11th. The sheriff has a history of not wanting to work with the FBI and doing everything he can to C-block them, if you know what I mean. He wants to be the one to spike the football, right? Am I near Tucson? No, but I lived in the Catalina foothills about 1.5 miles from where Nancy Guthrie lived up until my move. I live in Salinas, Ecuador. So I'm in South America. But there was a time, a good chunk of time, where I lived in the Catalina foothills. Loved it. It's a great place to live. The way that dude had reflectors on, he walked a good distance. The way the dude had reflected on, he had walked a good distance. I'm not sure what that means. Annie, the garage door opener for Nancy's house today because JLR video. Annie has a garage door opener. Oh, I'm sure that she has a garage door opener. It would be really odd if she didn't. That's right. Brazil. No, I am in Ecuador. You're funny, Tim. In fact, I did a video the other day. If you want to see where I live, I did a short 16-minute video just walking from my house to my favorite coffee shop. Too hot in the summer in Arizona. It absolutely is. You can't go outside. Like, we had a swimming pool at the house. Everybody does in the Catalina foothills. But you would go out and jump in it instantly, and it's like being in a bath. There's not much relief from that. Apparently, there was no actual concern with the camera, suggesting they were aware of the expired subscription. So who was responsible for paying the subscription? I beg to differ on this. I've heard this theory. I've heard a lot of people talk about it. I have seen, just from what I saw, they were going to take that camera out. They wanted it gone. I don't think that's a smokescreen. They didn't want to film the car that was going to pull up. And I did not know Brett McIntyre. No, I didn't know anybody from her neighborhood except my sister. And my sister literally lived in her neighborhood, but my sister moved out of that neighborhood years ago, sold the house. I think there was a lot of concern with that camera, right? That theory sucks in my opinion. This is my opinion. But I come at this not from a cop. I come at this from a criminal. If there was no concern with that camera, there's no reason to remove it. That's not a smoke screen for anything. How does that help anything? And by the way, even if there's no subscription, that's still going to be there, and it's still going to send an alert to her phone, right? That's not going to go away. It's just not going to sit in a database, right, for months on end that you could go back to. But so if you buy one of these cameras, either from Ring or from anybody else, and you don't pay for the subscription, every time somebody walks to your door, you still get an alert. And that's going to leave places that people can peel off. It's not like they wouldn't have done enough research, in my opinion, to at least know that they would have been in danger if they didn't get rid of that. And they absolutely walked up to there to get rid of that camera. They took that one with them. I would say that they were concerned with it. I don't buy that theory for a second. To me, it doesn't pass the smell test. Now, a lot of the theories that you're going to hear, thank you. What a cool thing to say. How about that? Somebody just hit subscribe. You think this is cool? Get over there and hit subscribe at Relatable Reese, and then check out my absolute lunatic brother who looks like my twin on Chase the Heat. He has he's been on a couple of reality shows. He's kind of a YouTube star of sorts. I went on the walk with you and enjoyed it. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. They knew it. They knew it all was an act. She was dead before too. So the whole thing was an act to bring in the FBI and make it into a case that the entire world was going to look at. If you were going to kill her, leave her in the building. I mean, from a criminal standpoint, you're going to kill her. Why the hell would you leave the building with her? I mean, I keep hearing people say this, but it doesn't make any sense to me. And the people that say, well, if you remove her, there's no evidence. The odds that you're going to leave evidence there, DNA, things like that, in the process of removing it is a terrifying concept to a criminal. And now you got to ride around with a body. So think about this from a criminal standpoint. We call it riding dirty, right? You can get T-boned at an intersection with a woman's dead body in your car. You're going to prison for the rest of your life. You have to take the risk that some drunk driver screws you up, that some zealous cop that just thinks, what's this guy doing out at 2:00 in the morning? Bullshits and says, hey, the light on your license plate is flickering. They pull people over for no reason at 2:00 in the morning everywhere in America constantly. Those cases get beat in court. No big deal. They just want to see if you're loaded. They want to see if you're drunk, because at 2:00 in the morning, a lot of the people that are driving around are idiots, right? They're usually doing something wrong. He had on a $400 coat, so bought it at Goodwill for sure. Well, he had on a lot in weather that was probably 70 to 80 degrees, right? Even at night, it does get a lot colder at night, but it doesn't require a coat. All of that seems very much almost like he's wearing a costume. But I think that the tattoo thing makes a lot of sense. He really seemed like he was trying to do everything possible to not leave DNA and to not let us get a look at his ink, because ink is like fingerprints, man. I mean, if you knew my tattoos, you don't need my fingerprints, right? You can describe every tattoo I got. then you could say that something happened or didn't happen. Not collecting the doormat right away was a huge mistake. Maybe we would have more answers if they had. How about all of the flowers? That's a great case, by the way. Very interesting case. The Nancy Woodrum case. If you've never, if you don't know that case, there are so many parallels between this case and that case. But it just happened to be somebody that got really preoccupied with her and believed that she was. But he also raped her inside the house. He was an idiot. Like he was not. This most assuredly wasn't somebody that rolled up there wearing a disguise and doing all of that, right? There was forethought in what happened to Nancy Guthrie. In the other case, this was a guy that was a sexual predator. He saw an opportunity to rape her and did, and then he panicked because that gear won't stop a cactus. No, it will not. Once he killed her, he panicked and he tried to get rid of her body. He also dropped a sheet. He did a lot wrong. These people, whether people go, yeah, the guy was a clown, he was trying to cover the camera. He wasn't trying to cover the camera. I promise you. The first time that they went up and took pictures that we could see, not the cops, of the front door, there was a stick sticking in the housing that the camera was attached to. They used that to get that off. I promise you. Just sub to chase the heat. Now I got you all. That's the spirit, Pebbles. I love it. How long did it take to catch him? A while. Months. Because once again, they chased the wrong people. They asked the son of that Nancy to take a test and a DNA test. And he said, not going to do it. How's that? He wasn't involved. He had no reason to say it, but he had fought with mom and he just said, no, I'm not taking it. How do you know Nancy wasn't SA'd in her home prior to the induction? Nanos just seems like he's playing the part of a sheriff. Yeah, I agree with you. Fake Monkey says, how do you know Nancy wasn't SA'd in her home prior to the abduction? It's a great question. And my answer would be this. Nobody takes that much effort to not leave DNA. Allegedly, according to the people that are smart at this, he's wearing 2 sets of gloves, right? He's got on a winter getup with a balaclava on, all that. Because believe it or not, if you just walk into someone's house like this, you're dropping DNA, right? Especially if you're in a panic mode or if you're keyed up. So this person went through all that effort. Now he's going to drop his pants, right? I don't think that makes a lot of sense. To take that much effort to go in there to not leave DNA and then to literally rape somebody, that's a DNA bonanza if you go in and rape somebody. Even if you're wearing a condom and doing all of that, the odds that you're going to leave telltale signs behind are incredible. So that's my theory on that. Am I right? I'm just telling you the way it makes sense to me. Why would you take all of that time and effort to make sure that you're not going to be dropping DNA? You got gloves on, right? You got a balaclava. You're doing all of this. And now you're going to drop your trousers or even just pull your junk out. All of those things are dangerous from a DNA standpoint. My thought also, they should have also collected the shrubs. Yeah. The shrubs that he used to pry that off, he's got a bite light in his mouth. He's breathing in and out. And no matter how cool and calm he looks, because he does look cool and calm, almost like heroin cool and calm, he's still breathing in and out with something in his teeth. And as a guy that repairs watches, I promise you that throws spittle everywhere. It's a bad thing. That's all right, Main. You'll get her on the replay. Hey, Tommy, thank you for walking around yesterday and showing us the ocean, the country. Amazing. Show looks like Panama City, Florida. All right. Solar camera sitting on the column looked out of place. Phone junction box looks stage 2. Mask and makeup doesn't need to hide from a camera. Well, it's not. I don't think. He walked right up to the camera. I don't think that was for that. I think the reason that camera had to go, right? He probably assumes that his image is going to be taken, but they're not going to be able to see it with the balaclava and everything else that he did, right? But if you look at this, let me see if I still have something I can pull up on this, because I think, if I'm not mistaken, I got an image that shows this pretty clearly. Let's see here. Bear with me. All right, here we go. So if you're going to pull up to that house, you see the driveway that's behind the handrail right there. So behind that area, just behind those 2 potted plants, is where the car would pick up somebody that you kidnapped. So you got to walk from that door to there. Can you imagine a car parked there right now? How hard would it be for you to tell me what that car was? Now, if this is a woman that is 84 years of age, I don't think you're walking her a mile to wherever your pickup driver is going to grab you. I think that in his pocket, that thing they keep saying is a jammer, it ain't a jammer. If it was a jammer, we wouldn't be looking at this picture, right? I don't know whether they're just trying to do content or whatever. But jammers work to eliminate signals. It'll eliminate 2.4 right, hertz as well as it will 5.1. 5.1 will be your Wi-Fi base. 2.4 will be that little door cam ring thing that's sending the message to the base. We have an image of this cat, right? How's that possible if he was jamming the signal? They can jam up to 70 feet. About the time he got on that walkway, this thing should have looked like fuzz. No, I think he was trying to get rid of that camera so we wouldn't see what the getaway car was that pulled up right there. And I think that's what his job was. Specifically, you got one job, fool, right? Your job is to go do this. People don't break into houses through the front door. Not at night, not in the day. Criminals go through the back door. Just on the outside chance that somebody happens to drive by or somebody is going to pull in the driveway or anything, you got time to run and get out of there, and you don't have to do it in front of the entire world, right? Most break-ins take place through the back door, and most burglaries take place during the daytime at residential homes and at businesses at night for the same reason. You don't want to break into some place where someone is, because America has 900 million guns and 315 or 330 million Americans. The odds that someone's got a gun in there and is willing to point it at you and shoot it, and God didn't make all people equal, Mr. Colt did. So if you grab a Colt pistol and you're 85, you're just as dangerous as someone who's 19 and does steroids, I promise you, right? 84-year-old women can pull a trigger just as easy as anyone else. But that is why, in my opinion, he's knocking out the camera. And I think that from a professional, like you got a crew, so you got a guy to knock out the front, you got a guy that's waiting at the back door. So once that front one is knocked out, those two can go in. They do whatever they do inside, right? Maybe things go bad. Hard telling. I think that some of it might have been that they wanted to get onto every one of her devices and see if that camera sent her an alert. Because if you leave and there's an alert on there, they wanted to make sure that they weren't leaving any of that behind. That's the only, and I'm not saying that's right. I'm just saying from a criminal standpoint, why would you take 40 minutes inside there? And we don't know that 40 minutes is accurate. It could have been less than that, more than that, right? But let's say that they're right and it's 40 minutes. That's a hell of a long time inside a house that you don't belong in. And I robbed banks, right? And I robbed more than one of them. We'll leave it at that. But it's very uncomfortable to walk into a house. I'd rather walk into a bank knowing I'm going to rob it, which I promise you will get your adrenaline pumping like you won't believe. But there's nothing worse than going into a home that you're not supposed to be in. I never did those kind of burglaries, right? But I've gone into drug dealers' homes to steal things. And when you're inside someone's house that isn't yours, every single cell in your body screams. It is a panic that you cannot imagine. Perps had a 3-man crew, 2 grunts and on the ground and 1 driver. Yeah, cowboy logic. I agree with you, man. I mean, and again, the only reason that I say that is if somebody said to me, hey, we want to hire you to do this, I wouldn't do it, right? Even in my criminal days, I wouldn't do it. I don't do that kind of thing. Was never my deal. I don't like victims if I can avoid them. And I realize the teller's a victim, right, at a bank. However, I stole from stores. I stole from banks. It's a stupid criminal mindset. But to me, that wasn't the same kind of victim as it was going into someone's house and messing with somebody in their 80s. But if I was hired to do that, I wouldn't do it alone. Just go try to lift 155 pounds of dead weight, right? Or if you had to carry this woman, I promise you that's an issue. And I'm bigger than all of the guys you see on there, right? I'm 6'2", 220. I would have a difficult time carrying that woman, especially if she was unconscious. I would not want to go in there alone. And you want to go in with overwhelming power, right? Anytime you do something where you want to subdue somebody, and don't hate me, I'm not this person, but you want to be able to go in there and scare the crap out of them. The balaclavas, I think, are probably just as much for that. That would scare the crap out of me, right? You go in like that, that's gonna make people do this, and that's how you want them, right? You do exactly what I say, and everything is gonna go good. We're not here to hurt you. This is about money, right? You're trying to keep them calm and scare the shit out of them at the same time. In the screenshot, it's the one where he's trying to cover the camera. If you zoom behind, it looks like there's a car parked with its lights on to the left. That is not how I see it. Having lived in the Catalina foothills, and I've explained this a lot, so if you're hearing this for the 5th time, I apologize. But when they built the Catalina foothills, right, they go like this. Normally, you'll bulldoze that, and you'll make a neighborhood where every single rows of houses that are all the same, and they'll have cameras on them. In the Catalina foothills, hey, Ruth, they did not mess with the topography. So on the top of these ridges are very expensive houses that have a beautiful view of the city. In the swales, they don't have a view of the city. They're still very expensive houses, but that is how it goes. And they built it in such a way where every house sits on an acre to 5 acres, and your house sits in the middle of it. And your fenced-in pool and all of that might only take up 3/4 of an acre to an acre. And the rest of it is so that animals can run around. It's your land, but they leave corridors for animals, and you see them all of the time, right? There are animals everywhere in the Catalina foothills. So this is one of those situations where every single night you're looking at lights from people's houses on the hills, right? And I think what you're looking at are the higher the houses that are up on the ridges, the ones that are on the top of the swales. That's what I think you're looking at. Just my opinion. I could be wrong, but that's what I think. If the perps were hirees, do you think they were paid or killed to break the link? I mean, best case scenario for the criminal would be to kill them. However, every time you whack somebody else, now you have another way of getting caught. If these people aren't going to come and rat. People go, why wouldn't the people working with them rat on them? If you were at the scene, if you're one of the people that went in and grabbed her, you're not cutting much of a deal with the feds. How did you want to get rid of the money? I put it in my arm. Ain't Todd. I'm sorry to admit that, but everything I stole went in my arm. I was a heroin addict. I love your channel and perspective. Everything you're saying is spot on. I'm 6'1", 200 pounds, in excellent shape. Dragging a 150-pound-year-old woman that is incapacitated is problematic at best. You're damn right, right? And let's say there's a tarp in the backpack. Let's say they intended to knock her out, right? Let's say they used chloroform and she didn't survive that. You'd be shocked how many 40-year-olds don't survive chloroform. It's a science, but people will buy chloroform online, put it on a rag and put it over someone's face. If you hold it there too long, you're going to do them in. And if a person has a really degraded, health, she was not in great shape. She had a pacemaker. She took a ton, and I mean a ton of medication. Carlos has a tattoo on his wrist. Just saying, Sikorsky, is his entire wrist covered? Because that looks more to me like it is an entire. It's part of a sleeve. Tommy, do you have a clip of the interview of the first arrested Carlos handy? Chad is saying he has an inner arm tattoo. You can see. I don't have that handy. He's got some ink, but currently 50% or something like that of the United States, if you're over the age of 18, has ink. So there's a lot of people with ink. This is really low, right? Getting a tattoo right here is, it's unusual for people on the street, right? Unless you have no worry in life about how you're going to make a living, right? If you're Beckham, you could tattoo your hands. If you're a rapper or you're with Maroon 5, you could sleeve your hands out, everything else. If you do that in the real world and you got to go get a job, try walking into a job interview with your entire, arms and hands tattooed. Is it fair? It is not, but they're going to judge you instantly by those. I promise you they are. People are freaked out by ink. I live in a place now where my just this, right? Tattoos down here have ink in them. I look like a convict, and it's, in the United States, if you see color, you assume the person got it on the street. If you don't, a lot of people just assume it was done in prison. In your opinion, why hasn't law enforcement released Annie's vehicle? It's not an opinion. It's a stone cold fact. They believe there is evidentiary value to the car. Anytime they don't release something back to somebody, it's because they think it has evidentiary value. That doesn't mean that the son-in-law is guilty. Doesn't mean any of that. They just believe that something in there. Annie's vehicle is being put back together. Mechanic dismantled law enforcement. Isn't it funny, though, that they disassembled Luke Daly's and got it back to him within 5 days? Those are the kind of things that law enforcement says when they don't want to tell you why they're really holding on to something. How long do you think it takes to put a car back together? I've told this story on the boat before, but I used to occasionally do some work with some bad people that would bring really large amounts of dope across the Mexican border. I'd never brought dope across the Mexican border. Those things have a bumper car. They've got a bait car, and the bait car is you drive through in a brand new vehicle with the screws on the dashboard stripped out, right? You wear a Grateful Dead t-shirt and you smoke a joint 20 minutes before you go. You stink up, maybe even dab a little bit of gin behind your ears because you want them to pull you over and search your car. And they would take that truck apart and put it back together in about an hour. So I don't know that I buy that, but that's just one guy's opinion. Luke looks like the porch guy to me. A lot of people have said that. Karen Reed's vehicle was returned to her dismantled. Well, I'm not surprised. That was the worst handling of any case in history. It's worse than OJ. There was no crime scene. They didn't even go in the house, and they wanted Karen Reed. They just destroyed that woman's life, did everything they could to destroy that woman's life, and messed with the video, right? They did awful lot of really weird stuff in that case. On the porch guy video, after he folds the branch in half, there is briefly a light source under his arm. Some said it's a reflection. Thoughts? I happen to think that's the other perp. When you watch him bend down and pick up the flowers, he looks this way. And it's not a panic. I heard a noise. It's a very casual. He looks up. I think there was some hand signaling or whatever going on. I think that the second person was not around the back yet. I think they stood there waiting for the camera to be removed. And then the both of them went to the back door would be my theory. But the gloves didn't match. Whose gloves are we talking about? Oh, the gloves that were found 2 miles away. Yeah, those gloves belong to somebody that. How would they have known she had a pacemaker? If you look at the Catalina foothills and where these houses are, to find someone's house and just randomly go, we're going to go into this house at night. You might do that if it's a burglary, right? You're not going to do that if it's targeted. And if it's targeted, then you're going to know who you're picking up. You're going to know that this is an 84-year-old woman. You're going to know probably an awful lot about her. Because if this woman was snatched for any other reason other than a sick pervert, then it had something to do with Savannah's worth, right? How much she was worth. And I would imagine you would do all kinds of research. I have said, and I'm playing the numbers game. I'm not just being a dick because the guy has a terrible neck beard. The numbers game says that 8 out of 10 times this is going to be somebody in family or somebody so close to the friggin' family that they may as well be family, right? Someone that really is like that tied into the family. They're going to know she went in and had a pacemaker put in, right? I think that, again, unless this is just a sicko that wants to rape her or hurt her, but those guys don't usually act in teams of 3. That would be really odd. Someone told JLR that Tommaso's published poems were very dark. I think that Tommaso's music is dark. The poems were Annie's, and yeah, they're kind of dark. Now, you like Ashley Banfield for this? She just looks guilty. God, I wish I had her email. I would tell her that. Nancy said yesterday, that they're putting the car back together. I believe 100% that they're saying they're putting the car back together. However, this does not take that much time to put a car back together. And if you have an image in your head of this car literally being disassembled, like down to nothing, that isn't what happened, right? They probably did stuff like pull up all of the carpets. They removed the seats, right? This kind of thing. But it's not literally disassembling a car, right? It would be if this was at the border for drugs. They'll take off the quarter panels. They do all of that stuff, or used to. Now they have machines that can just x-ray your car. But back in the day, they would disassemble that rascal, and they could still put it back together that fast. Have you been following the Corey Richards trial? I want to see what somebody with no soul looks like. That's her. You know what? I'm so glad you said that. Look, my wife is still here. Relatable Reese, good to see you. That's my girl. Head over to her channel and hit subscribe. You will thank me later. If you want a little tester first, see the show we did yesterday. It's really a good one. It's kind of smart using the full moon and using less light. The end result is just sick. Yeah, I would go the exact opposite. I'd go the exact opposite. It's a Honda. How long does it take to assemble? Most cars are assembled in a day, right? If it's an assembly line. But I would go the exact opposite, right? I don't want to do it on a night that the moon is out because everybody can see you, right? You can still see where you're going and all that. I would want the cover of dark. I also wouldn't have anything on my body that reflected light. That's the dumbest thing in the world. Like the backpack straps blew my mind. Why the hell would you have reflectors on? What time would they keep it for this amount? Why would they keep it for this amount of time? Because they think there's evidentiary value. And very often, let's just say they're still trying to put the case together before they arrest this cat. You're not going to give back a car that you need for the case. If you're planning on prosecuting him, that car's never going to go back. Hello, B. Rose. Good to see you. Yeah, personally, I like darkness all of the way. I still think it was a fireman carry since the blood was not stepped on. That's a logical thing to say. However, some experts have weighed in on this, right? It would be a lot easier to put back together if it was made of Lego. I agree with you. I've said many times, everything should be made of Lego. I heard somebody that I have a lot of respect for. Guys worked 3,000 death scenes. Wrap your dome around that. 3,000 death scenes. He's also worked out at the death farm. He's written a bunch of books. But anyway, he believes that the person was about this close to the ground, maybe. So in his scenario, she would have been very close to the ground. And he believes that it came out of the nose or mouth, but it was expectorated. So it was a cough, a sneeze, or something like that, because he thinks he sees saliva in that. right? Now, could that happen from a nosebleed over someone's shoulder? It could, but he doesn't see the drops that you would normally associate with a drop of, say, 5 feet. He thinks that she was much closer to the ground, maybe carried in a tarp. Maybe that's what was in that backpack. But again, try carrying 150 pounds in a tarp alone. I don't see this as a one-man gig. Thought Brian T said they're returning the car. A crapload of people have said they're returning the car. Nevertheless, look at how long they had the Range Rover, right? They had the Range Rover and it was gone that fast. And you remember they were looking for a gray car, right? They were looking for a gray truck or a gray SUV. When he's in front of the camera and trying to remove it, that's what I'm speaking of. He holds it up and then folds it before reaching up again. There's a rectangular light. You see it then. Yes, I absolutely think that is a flashlight from a second perp. And somebody on the boat spent hours and hours looking at that and blew up pictures and sent them to me. And I think it makes a good argument. What about the redheaded girl that was associated with the DJ dude? Doesn't she do tattoos? She has a lot of tattoos. Everybody in that community seems to have a lot of tattoos. She does piercings is what she does. Do you think she may have fallen on her knees or carried that way? She could have fallen on her knees, or they could have forced her to her knees while they were trying to get the door locked and shut or whatever they did at the door. Because obviously if you were carrying her, if she wasn't in a stationary position, those blood drops would have, right? They hit the ground and they slide, right? If it's in a direction. It leads the people that are good at this. I've had been punched in the nose a lot. I've seen a lot of blood from fights, but I'm no expert, right? But they say that this was from a stationary position. She wasn't moving. So yeah, forced to her knees, even held with her head down, right? If you're just being a dick. It's going to be a problem prosecuting in this case with the sheriff's big mouth saying the family is cleared. Yeah, well, they did the same thing in the case of in Boulder, Colorado, of what's the little girl's name? Johnny Scoville. Colorado, still missing. Brother Burke. John Benet Ramsey. They did this in the John Benet Ramsey case too. Doesn't work out well. Yes, I followed the Corey Richins case ad nauseum, right? I've been following that case closely since it first came out, and nothing that she's absolutely guilty, right? Normally in an autopsy, they would find some pills that weren't fully dissolved. This is something, sadly, I know way too much about. We've lost so many lifeboaters. There's a lot of people on here who are fighting addiction that I've worked with, but 2 milligrams of fentanyl will kill you, right? So a lot of those pills have 6 times that. There's been some crazy dosages, and your body will shut down, and usually there's still undigested parts of that pill inside you. And none of that was in there. There's not even residue. So that stuff had to have been crunched up, and it had to have been put in that Moscow Mule. And you're right. She is the absolute portrait of evil. What do I think about the gun position or the holster? I think it's there as decoration. I think when you got inside, what you want is for the person to see that gun and be terrified. But the second person would step in the blood or flowers unless the second person walked out first, right? Didn't have to be, you follow me? If she's not being carried out, you could have had someone walk out first. They don't need someone behind her. He can have her by the hair. Nose bleed from someone on blood thinner is heavier. Yeah, and it won't stop for a really long time. One of the real problems with those blood thinners are that I think she was frog marched out at dawn. It's not a bad theory. However, I think that because of when she disconnected, when the pacemaker disconnected from the base, right? I think that's when she left that house. So I do believe that 238, what is it? 238? I think it's 238. I think that's a good timetable. The rest of it might not be solid. We don't know exactly when they went in the house. There's a spike on her pacemaker where it showed like her heart started to race. Doesn't necessarily mean that's when they went in. She could have had a nightmare for all we know, right? But Jennifer Liberty, thank you for keeping free speech alive. Now I can say all those words they don't want me to, like gun. You can't say that one. I got to call it a pew pew. I got to call it those things that you put into pew pews. The person was unalived. Can't even say murder, man. The big red button is trying to kill your ability to talk like a normal person. Ever read 1984? Don't put up with it. We're not going to put up with it here. And it's people like Jennifer Liberty that enable me to continue to talk the way I do. Never going to say a pew pew unless I'm mocking people. What about Savannah's book about a kidnapping game? Yeah, I think it's a really odd coincidence, right? Or the other option is that this is a sicko, right? That it has erotomania and he's absolutely completely preoccupied. And I do believe it's a he. There could have been a woman involved in planning it, but the perps, I think, are men. Buried and perp had a house to himself for the kidnapping. Could be. It's very difficult to dig in that soil there. So honestly, it's a hard place to put a shovel in. It's a very, very rugged soil to try to just, and normally, like if you're a gangster and you're doing it right, you want to go down 4 to 5 feet, right? You got to dig a pretty big hole. And that would be a hard thing to do. Then on top of that, you've got a whole lot of people flying all over the place using cameras. I wouldn't be surprised if they pointed a satellite or two at that part of the world. And if there's some, a 6-foot plot that's freshly dug in someone's backyard, I think you might be in some trouble. Why didn't the porch guy unscrew the light fixture above him? Wouldn't that be a part of the job? The light fixture above him. Oh, you mean unscrew the light? I don't think he could reach it. I certainly had to get on a stepladder to reach the one at my house. I don't think he could have just reached up and done that. I think he probably would have needed a stepladder. Son-in-law can be connected easier to Luke. Is that you mean because he played some of these fetish balls? Is that what you're referring to? So Savannah's book, really briefly, she talked about a kidnapping that a relative of hers used to do. They would come and visit, and every morning they would say, let's get up. And what we're going to do is you'll get in this station wagon that we have, and they would drive away. And then they would stop at a payphone and call home and say, Mom, we were kidnapped. And they would do it every single time they all got together. I remember growing up as a kid, and we lived in the sticks. And every kid I knew, they used to play these games at night. They called it bloody murder. Now, put that in a book, and it sounds pretty damn bad. But kids play games. Light wasn't on, says CJ. I wasn't sure of that. Let's see something here real quick. Yeah, it's hard to tell whether the light is on or not. Truthfully, it is. Because all of this, what we're looking at, yeah, I think the light might be on. But it's hard to tell because everything is kind of inverted. We're looking at this in infrared, right? We're not looking at this in regular pictures, right? We're looking at this in infrared. So it's hard for me. It's not really my wheelhouse. I'm not great at that. And again, if you're brand new here, I come at this a little bit different, right? I don't come at this like a cop. I come at this like a criminal. Sadly, I spent a lot of my life breaking the law, and I spent 13 years in a federal prison, and almost 13 years in a federal prison. I spent a couple of years in a state joint too, but I spent a lot of time around a lot of criminals, right? And inside prison, if you've been unfortunate enough to be there, hold on one second. All people do is sit around and talk about the crimes they've done. I've met kidnappers. They all get caught the first time around. They all get caught. True story. But I've never, this doesn't make sense to me from a criminal standpoint. And a lot of the things that people say, they say from a cop standpoint, and it doesn't line up with the criminal part of it. Like the guy today who was talking about tattoos and said in prison they use, alcohol to make to do shading. They use one needle. They take a hell of a lot of time. It hurts like hell. And they do shading with one needle. Then no one's putting alcohol on anybody with their tattoo, and I promise you. People have receipts of Kayla, Luke's girlfriend, is a cousin of the Guthries. Well, their receipts are bullshit. How's that? I'm sorry if that sounds cold-hearted, but this is one that I have answered a lot. And I literally spent, I can't tell you how much time trying to tie her in any way to that family. If they have receipts, the receipts are wrong. And I promise you that there are people that research this better than I do. And none of them are coming out and saying that. In fact, it has been thoroughly debunked that she has any relation to the Guthrie family. She's just not. It would be lovely because it would certainly start tying this up with a red bow, and I would love for that to happen. You're right. My sister's friends talked about Tommaso being a sweetheart. What did she say about Annie? Not much. She seemed to know Tommaso better, and I think that's because Tommaso probably drove her around a lot. She knew Nancy Guthrie from Bible studies, and I think that's where she met the son-in-law, and also listening to things that Nancy said about the son-in-law. She said Nancy adored her son-in-law. That's the truth. That's what I was told. Doesn't mean that I still don't like the guy for the suspect, because there's nobody else to me that I see. He was the last person to see her. That's always where you start, or family. He's both. And his behavior since the arrest, I find odd. Being a guy that follows true crime a lot, I find it very odd. He doesn't seem to have any desire to keep the press talking about this. And that's usually what all of the family want to do. You've kept me from losing my mind lately. I truly appreciate what you do. Thank you for being my real and saying what's right. And Reese too. Sikorsky, thank you so much. And the Reese she's talking about, of course, is Relatable Reese. That's the hot blonde over my left shoulder. And if you've never seen her channel, she will make you laugh like no one else on earth. And chances are at my expense. Go by there and hit subscribe. You'll have dirt on me. Porch Man did not get his tattoo in prison. Please make me understand why you believe that. And thank you for the support and for keeping free speech alive. It means the world to me. Roadrunner, this chat is great, is it not? Porch Man did not get his tattoo in prison. Cheryl Sargent, I'd love to hear why. And I'm not busting your chops. I really do want to hear why. I still haven't changed my mind. Prove me wrong. Well, I mean, there's no way to prove anything at this point, right? We all have our theories, and but there won't be any proof. If there was proof, I would be telling you that Tommaso did it, which is not what I've ever said about this. What I've said is, in my belief, I like him most for this crime because he fits the bill more than anybody else that is out there and in the eye. Did Tommaso have his phone with him when he dropped Nancy off? If not, why? Interesting question, but I don't know the answer. I'm 15 minutes behind. You mean wearing a Grateful Dead shirt while smelling like weed might get you pulled in? Yeah. Yes, it will. In fact, depending on what state you're in, just having to steal your face on your bumper is reason enough to pull you over. Please give your thoughts on the sheriff clearing the family yet keeping Eddie's car. He told us the first time that he cleared the family on day 5, right after the good Lord, my brain is done. When it first came out, right, that he may be the number one suspect. The sheriff came out instantly afterwards, right, and said, "Yeah, they're not suspects." And then he sent a team over to spend 5 days going through the house. You understand? That doesn't make sense to me. If you've eliminated him, why are you still investigating the crap out of him? Why haven't you turned the car back over? I think that he doesn't want to come out and go, yeah, they're suspects. They're going to lawyer up. Last thing a cop wants is for anybody to lawyer up. So he wants to do everything he can to make it look like they're not. But if he wanted them to look like they're not, he would tell the world they took a polygraph and passed it. Or he would say, too recent and colors of tattoos are brilliant. Those colors are black. There's no colors in there. This tattoo is 13 years old, right? The tattoos, that is all black ink. There's no color in that tattoo. Not much, but a little something. Respect for not talking to grown folks like 3-year-olds. My username says my age ends, I believe, 1977, right in my wheelhouse. Be damned if pew pew was in my vocabulary. Stay real, my man. Thank you, Daniel Phillips. You're making it happen. True story. Now let's get a look at this. Yeah, there's Reese again. And I promise you want dirt on me? You're not going to catch it here. Go over there. She likes to embarrass me. We have fun. All right, let's look at this tattoo again. Where do you see color on that? And I'm not being disrespectful, but you say the color is too new to be done in prison. I got prison tats. Look at when I take this down, look at the tattoo on my back. That's 20 years old, right? Does it look, faded or dark? I'll show you the tattoo I got on my right arm that is dark as hell after decades of being in the sun, right? But I don't see any color on that. That's gray work. That's black and gray. And it looks to me to be single needle, which is you can get on the street, but it hurts like hell. It takes way longer, costs way more money. Most people don't do single needle because they want it, right? They do it because they have to do that. In prison, you can't use shaders, which are 3, 5, or 7 needles, right? Personally, that screams prison tattoo to me. I wish that you could see my ink clearer on this camera, right? But, right, that's dark. In fact, it doesn't even look as dark on the screen as it is in real life. That's a dark ass tattoo though. It's jet black in real life. And this, right, is really old. Nothing's fading on this, right? This is a very, very old tattoo, and it was done in prison with a single needle. There's the bunny from Alice in Wonderland. There is the Mad Hatter right there from Alice in Wonderland. And then back here, I've got the Cheshire Cat. You can still make out everything on that cat, right? I'm not losing anything. And that is a super, super old tattoo. The ink was made inside. You'd be blown away at the work that people can get done inside. You can have black tattoos last a very, very long time. Roadrunner, have a great night. Thank you for spending time with me. Louisa thinks it's a bear. It is a bunny. Valerie says, cool. All right, people, I'm going to be wrapping this puppy up here shortly. If you have any more questions, let's get them in. I do want to give you a bit of a warning, but I'm leaving quickly because I'm going to need to. If I don't say goodnight to my wife, it really bums me out. And I'm keeping her up late. Whoever keeps saying they see color in the tattoo, I think they're referring to the skin color. Well, the skin, yeah, it's not all black, right? We're looking at skin around that. Jody, can we get thoughts and prayers for Jody? You think it's part of a dog? It might be. You just don't see a tattoo at all. Well, I do, right? You're only seeing, keep in mind, right? I don't know if you can see my cursor, but you're only seeing maybe 1/4 of an inch. And what you're seeing is skin, right? Where the ink is not. And then shaded in and outlined ink. I'm going to take some, tomorrow I will give you guys some pictures of some prison tats up close so that you can get an idea of what these look like. I still got some pictures of some friends from inside and all of them. Mop Man, have a good night. Paul M., I'm glad that you enjoyed it. Like a little vacation? Well, I'm going to be doing more of them because a lot of people have asked me to. Tim Trimble says it's a tat. I spent 13 years in prison. I've seen tens of thousands of prison tattoos, right? Everybody's got one. There's usually 1,300 people in every prison, and there's a constant rotation through. I had a cellmate for 13 months that put ink on people all day long, every day. And it very much looks like a prison tattoo to me. Well, thank you. It is a nice discussion. All right, people. Alice, then hit that subscribe button, and then make sure you get over and do it at Relatable Reese. If you love this, she's going to blow you away. A lot of people have found their tribe over there. I'm her biggest fan. I'm not going to lie to you. Tat looks like a side profile of a guy wearing a cowboy-style hat. Could be. Hold on one second. They don't have their DNA. Otherwise, they would have already found him in CODIS, right? Well, yeah. If that's prison ink, then he should have been in CODIS. Bottom line. Valerie, she's a better wife than I am a husband. No kidding. One of the best true crime shows around. You are one of a kind. Joe, what a cool thing to say. I really appreciate that. What a kind thing to say. And it's people like you that are keeping this show real. Carlos has a sleeve tat. All righty. Then we're going to have to see what the inside of his wrist looks like. Why do I think there wasn't a blood trail? Well, there could be a lot of reasons. Once they realized that blood was falling there, they could have put something over her nose if she was bleeding. That she could have been in a tarp and they could have shoved her head back in it. I mean, none of these are pleasant thoughts, but there is a blood trail, right? What you see right there is not the only blood you see. There were droplets that were going all the way out to, yeah, John, here's the thing though. And staging it for what reason? Thank you again, Joe, for the support. I really appreciate it. You guys are keeping me alive. But staging it for what reason? You stage a kidnapping and you bring in the FBI, you bring in the Babe Ruths of crime investigation. You'd rather have it be a local crime. I don't see any way that there is anything that they get any benefit from staging, taking someone away and leaving her blood there. To me, it doesn't make sense, right? But I could be wrong. I see part of maybe a bear or a beer bottle in the center, bottom of a knife handle, maybe. But I'll tell you what, you guys obviously want to weigh in on this more, so I'm going to do this tomorrow. Cover up because Annie. Again, though, how does that cover it up? How does putting blood on the front cover up anything? You follow me? You want to do a cover up? You leave the dead body in the shower. You burn the house down. These are like standard operating procedures for how people try to cover up crimes. To create a crime scene that shows that somebody could be dead is a very unusual way to stage a crime scene. Taking a body with you that's dead is almost unheard of. For real, why do you leave with a dead body? Leave it in the house, right? Burn the body. There's gross things that people do to try to cover up crimes. Taking someone home just invites more BS, but that's just one convict's opinion, ex-convict's opinion. I'm completely retired. These days, what do you call me, hon? Bunny whiskers. Bunny whiskers these days. All right, people. Looks like the body or tail of a dragon tattoo or a snake. Those are done a lot. Those are done an awful lot. If you didn't catch the beginning of the show, go back and check out what I talked about with the what some of the gangs do, like Quetzalcoatl, like the serpent god. A lot of the imagery that you can see, you can Google it too if you want to. I'm sure they'll show you what the Sureños and the Norteños use commonly as the symbolism in their ink. You see that? I told you she likes to embarrass me, and then I can always fire back with this one. That's my girl. All right, people. And on that note, that's the way to end one. Head over to Relatable Reese, hit subscribe. If you haven't hit subscribe here, I don't like you anymore. I'm Tommy. We will see you on the next one. Between now and then, please say a prayer for Miss Guthrie and her family, right? That something good comes and we have a solid outcome to this. It would be great if she came home alive. That would be great. If not, let's get some peace for the family. I'm Tommy. We'll see you on the next one. Have a great night. Bye-bye.